Today's story takes us right into a freezing American winter, like February 2024. That's when the search kicked off for Lycan Riley, a 22-year-old nursing student who suddenly vanished from a place that honestly seemed completely safe at any hour of the day. Her friends noticed super quickly that something was off. They realized her location on the Find My Friends app hadn't moved for over an hour. But even with their fast reaction and every effort they could make, they just couldn't save Lycan from the horrific fate that, honestly, no one deserves. It was actually surveillance footage and police body cam recordings that helped investigators piece together what happened over the following days. But, from what's been reported, everything they saw left a really deep mark on the people working the case. And in the end, all the evidence pointed to one person, someone who had been hiding not just one, but multiple terrifying secrets. Hey, you're on Jaxon's channel, where every case has a face and every crime tells its own story. I'm just starting out, so I'd love for you to drop in the comments which story you want to hear next, and also what I could change to make watching my videos more comfy for you. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. So, February 22nd, 2024. That's the day 22-year-old Lycan Riley was officially reported missing. She was studying nursing at the University of Georgia in Athens. That morning, she told her roommates she was going for a run. Honestly, this wasn't unusual. Lycan loved running and did it at least twice a week. She knew this route like the back of her hand. The running trails and area near the lake are part of the southern section of campus, called the UGA Intramural Fields. It's got scenic meadows, woods, and a small lake. Usually, there are always people around. I mean, what could feel safer than a university campus, right? Lycan had run there hundreds of times before, but that day she never made it back home. Her friends started getting worried when her run lasted longer than usual. They checked Find My Friends and saw she hadn't moved for over an hour. That's when their panic spiked. They texted, called, but got nothing. In that silence, her friends decided to go look for her themselves. They left the house at 11:31 a.m., took the trail, and by 11:46, they found one of her AirPods. At that moment, they realized something terrible had happened. By 12:05 p.m., her friends called the police.
Hi, we're calling because our roommate went out for a run at 9. She usually runs like through Lake Herrick behind grad housing, and we haven't heard from her. And we all just got like service back, so we don't think it has anything to do with the outage. We went to go look to where her last location was, and all we found was an AirPod.
Do you know if she has class or anything at this point?
She has a class at 1, so that's it's her nursing. She's at Augusta Nursing School, and she does not miss class.
How did you get her last known location? Was it from her phone?
Yes, it was updating, so that's why we're a little confused. She hasn't moved for almost 3.5 hours now.
How did she get there? Did she run from your house there, or did she take a vehicle there?
Yes, she runs the trail. Her car's still at our house.
Okay, we've got officers on the way, all right?
Okay, thank you.
It's like 2025 outside. People had already heard a ton of creepy stories that started just like this one. So Lycan's friends didn't waste a second. They immediately jumped into the search. But just 38 minutes later, this story turned into an absolute nightmare. What they found was horrifying. By 12:38 p.m., the University of Georgia police finally found Lycan. They'd only been searching for 11 minutes since arriving at the sports fields area. According to Officer Kenneth Maxwell's report, he was combing the wooded strip along the running trail when he saw Lycan lying on the ground, unconscious. He yelled at her, no response. He got closer, still nothing. Checked her pulse, nothing. She had, like, obvious and severe injuries. Unfortunately, it looked really, really bad. By the end of the hour, a forensic team had arrived, and Lycan's death was classified as a suspected homicide. University police immediately notified all local departments. Her friends and family found out about the tragedy literally within an hour. There's body cam footage showing Lycan's family being told about her death, and honestly, it's one of the hardest videos I've ever seen. Their grief you can't even put into words. The person who did this didn't just take her life, they brutally violated her. The police immediately knew this would be a case nobody could forget. Luckily, there was a lot of evidence left at the scene that could help catch the perpetrator. But before we go further, let's take a moment to remember who Lycan Riley was and how this beautiful soul touched so many lives. She was born on January 10th, 2002, to her mum, Alison Phillips, and dad, Jason Riley. Lycan grew up in the picturesque town of Marietta, Georgia. She was the kind of person who, even from a young age, knew exactly what she wanted out of life. As a teenager, Lycan developed a deep passion for caring for people. For medicine, she dreamed of helping others. And it was this passion that led her to the University of Georgia, where she enrolled in the nursing program at Augusta Medical College in Athens. While at school, Lycan was an active member of the Alpha Chi Omega, AHI Omega sorority. She really cherished her sisters and friends. She always put others first, and honestly, that was just who she was. Her friends describe her as one of the kindest, most caring people they'd ever met. That's exactly why nursing was such a natural choice for her. Caring for others was literally in her DNA. She also worked as a babysitter for 2 little kids, and wherever she went, she spread joy with that contagious smile of hers. You could often catch her running, singing, studying, or just strolling with a friend to Circle K for a Diet Coke. Beyond caring for people, Lycan had a deep faith in God. Her dedication to sharing His word inspired her to go on mission trips with her church, and her love for the Lord was obvious in every part of her life. Honestly, if you look at her Instagram, you can see she really lived a happy life. Her childhood in Georgia was filled with warmth, love, and incredible moments that shaped her into the bright, kind soul she became. Friends remember fun road trips out of town, her genuine laughter, and her amazing ability to make any group feel warmer and happier. For her family, she was a wonderful daughter, a caring sister, a loyal friend, and just an incredible human being. So, when they got the devastating news, it literally shattered them. But almost immediately after her death was confirmed, some disturbing reports started coming in. Witnesses saw a mysterious figure in a hood. The first report came from another runner. She said that while jogging past the lake, she saw a man wearing a dark blue jacket, black gloves, and a hood pulled tight. He was standing completely still and silent, not reacting to her or anyone else. It was like he was totally absorbed in his phone, ignoring everything around him. Armed with these accounts, detectives began combing through all the surveillance cameras near the scene, trying not just to track Lycan's running route, but also to see if anyone had been following her. And what they saw was seriously disturbing. On the camera footage, this guy actually shows up hours before her death at 6:52 a.m. The video shows a man wearing dark flip-flops, dark pants, a dark jacket, and a grey bag slung over his shoulder. He's leaving the AU Light Apartments, which is just a few minutes away from where Lycan's body would later be found southwest of the lake, right where the other runner had spotted him. You can see him walking around, looking back and forth, like he's searching for someone or stalking someone. About 7 minutes later, he approaches a student dorm and tries to get inside. This wasn't Lycan's apartment, it belonged to another student. At the time, the girl was taking a shower, and the blinds on her first floor window were open. He spent a few minutes trying to get in, but eventually gave up and walked away. Well, walked away isn't really the right word. Over the next 56 minutes, he came back to her door 5 times, trying to force it open. Finally, at 7:57 a.m., the girl noticed someone was trying to break in. She immediately called the police, and the second the guy realized she'd noticed him, he bolted.
Okay, and what's going on? I was in the shower, and then I heard some noises. I was trying to open the door, and then I said, excuse me, and then they just ran away, and then now they just trying to look through my window.
A little over an hour later, at 9:05 a.m., another surveillance camera caught Lycan running along Oakney Street, Mid Avenue extension toward a bus stop. She was dressed all in black and holding her phone in her hand. Later, she turned east, heading toward the lake. But that's not all the police found. Some of the evidence left at the scene was actually made by Lycan herself. We still don't know exactly what happened, but just 6 minutes later, at 9:11 a.m., she made an emergency call to the Athens Clarke County Police.
Clarke County 911. Hello, this is Clarke County 911. Hello, Clarke County 911. Can anyone hear me? Clarke County 911.
During the call, almost nothing was said, but around the 50th second, a man's voice is heard, quietly saying, "Okay." Right after that, the connection cut out. The police tried calling her back a minute later at 9:12, and then again at 9:13, but both times, Lycan didn't answer. That only meant one thing: something happened right at that moment. Whatever happened to her, it most likely happened then. Call logs showed that just a few minutes before contacting the police, Lycan had been talking to her mum, and honestly, That detail made the whole situation even more terrifying. At the crime scene, investigators found linear scratches on her torso, one strip under her underwear, and a severe injury to the left side of her head. Nearby lay a bloodied rock. When medical personnel arrived, Lycan was declared dead on the scene. Data from her smartwatch showed her heart stopped at 9:28 a.m. By evening, the news of Lycan Riley's death had spread across the country. People were shocked and outraged that another woman had fallen victim to a sexual assault and murder. Even though only a short time had passed, the police already had surveillance footage, eyewitness accounts, and the phone call recording, but that wasn't enough. So they decided to dig deeper, literally. Late that evening, one of the officers was checking trash bins near the AU Light apartments. And suddenly, when peeking into one of the dumpsters, he noticed something strange, a black jacket. It had blood-like stains. And on closer inspection, the officer saw dark hair tangled around one of the buttons. It looked extremely suspicious. I mean, who just throws a bloody jacket away without wrapping it first? While examining the area, the officers noticed that one of the neighbours had a Ring doorbell camera pointed right at that dumpster. They immediately requested the footage, and that's when they finally got what they were looking for. The footage showed the same man who had been spotted by the other cameras earlier. At 9:43 a.m, he approaches the dumpster and throws in the black jacket. Interestingly, this happened just 15 minutes after Lycan's heart stopped. One key detail the investigators noticed: his black Adidas cap. That little detail would later become crucial. The cameras also captured him walking over to some nearby bushes right after dumping the jacket and tossing something into them. Following the trail, the police found bloodied gloves in those bushes. Experts analysed the DNA found on the jacket and gloves, and the results were shocking. It all belonged to Lycan Riley. They also confirmed that the hair tangled on the button was hers. Another camera in the area caught the same man returning to the dumpster 40 minutes later at 10:21 a.m, holding a clear bag. 3 minutes later, he passes by again, but now without the bag. At that point, the detectives had a complete profile of the suspicious man, but they didn't know who he was. Not yet. Anyway, in response, the police issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, for the suspect across the University of Georgia campus, sharing his photo near the dumpster with the public. But honestly, they didn't have to search for long. There's a blunt saying, don't do disgusting things where you live, and this could not have been more true in this case. Turns out, the guy lived right there, in the same apartment complex. Once the photo of the suspect by the dumpster went public, the police started getting tons of calls. People reported that his name was Jose Antonio Abarca, and yep, after checking his profile, he perfectly matched the description. The thing is, it wasn't just that he lived next to the dumpster and was literally minutes from where Lycan's body was found. He also matched the suspect's appearance from the surveillance cameras exactly. And the worst part, he was far from being a model citizen. So, armed with this information, the police decided to pay him an official visit. Their body cams captured every single moment. The next day, officers arrived at his apartment, and with every passing minute, their anxiety grew. When they knocked on the window, they realized Jose was asleep. It quickly became clear that nobody in the apartment spoke English, not even his brother Diego. And given how sensitive the case was, the officers needed to ask every question as accurately as possible. So, they called in a police officer who spoke Spanish. That turned out to be the right move. While waiting for the translator, the officers noticed fresh scratches on Jose's body, on his arms, wrists, hands, and even his neck. When asked about them, he claimed it was just from the cold, saying he'd scratched himself. But one officer noticed pus oozing from some of the scratches, a clear sign they were very fresh, likely just a day old. On top of that, they saw that his brother Diego was wearing the same black Adidas cap seen in the surveillance footage. They also found a green card with 2 different birth dates, an obvious fake. That was more than enough to arrest him on suspicion of murder. Jose was taken into custody. But then came the question, who exactly is Jose Abarca? What other facts did the police have on him? And could he really have killed Lycan Riley? Unfortunately, digging into his past offered no comfort. We all know a person's character is shaped by their environment, but this guy, he seemed as corrupt as he was reckless. According to official records, his nickname was Victor, and his full name was Jose Antonio Abarca. He was 26 years old and originally from Venezuela. He came to the United States illegally in September 2022, crossing the southern border near El Paso, Texas. He was caught by federal agents, but surprisingly, instead of being deported, he was released into the country. Initially, Jose stayed at a migrant shelter in the Roosevelt Hotel in New York and later flew to Georgia. He settled in an apartment complex less than 1.5 miles from the wooded area where Lycan's body was later found in the very same Aulet complex. It turned out that Jose had a troubled past, full of arrests, both federal and local, across multiple states. In September 2023, Jose was arrested in New York for endangering a child under 17 and traffic violations. Just a month later, he and his brother, whom police linked to a Venezuelan gang, were arrested in Athens for theft. Officers found stolen merchandise from a local Walmart in their possession, but both were later released. Honestly, it was pretty clear that Jose hadn't learned anything by December 2023. Just a few months before Lycan's murder, he was issued an arrest warrant for failing to appear in court in a theft case in Georgia. That fact alone says it all. Jose was a troublemaker with a long criminal history, and now he was facing murder charges. It's no surprise that, given his background, Lycan's death became a heated political debate between the two main parties. And, logically, that's because Jose was an illegal immigrant who arrived in the US less than 2 years earlier, and now he was on trial for murder. Unfortunately, this wasn't the first case like this. The Molly Tibbetts case comes to mind with a nearly identical scenario. It's a complex, deeply political issue, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on it. But one thing is clear, Jose faced trial for horrific crimes. So, let's break it down. Jose was charged with 10 counts. 3 counts of intentional murder, malicious murder, unlawful restraint, kidnapping, assault with intent to commit rape, obstructing a 911 call, concealing another person's death, and peeping Tom. He pleaded not guilty to all charges, waived a jury trial, and opted for a bench trial. The trial began on November 15th, 2024. The prosecution painted a gruesome picture of that morning. Lycan went out for a routine jog across campus when Jose, dressed in a black hoodie, black cap, and kitchen gloves, approached her. He blocked her path just as she tried to call 911, then attacked. Lycan desperately fought back, scratching his hands, wrists, and neck, trying to break free. It's believed he tried to pull her shirt over her head before the attack, but she wasn't giving up. When she resisted, Jose strangled her, then hit her several times in the head with a rock. Afterward, he dragged her body deeper into the wooded area. Jose's defense argued that all the evidence was circumstantial and based on assumptions. They claimed the case was being driven more by emotion than fact. His attorneys repeatedly moved to change the trial venue, all without success. They also tried to suppress several key pieces of evidence, clearly realizing this case was nearly impossible to win. It was obvious from the start that all the aces were in the prosecution's hand, and the case itself looked remarkably straightforward. Multiple surveillance cameras captured Jose near the crime scene, which was confirmed by eyewitnesses. On top of that, a mountain of evidence directly tied him to Lycan. This included his thumbprint on her phone, his DNA under her nails, his voice caught during Lycan's 911 call, and numerous scratches that matched her defensive injuries. The trial was extremely difficult, especially for her family. Lycan's mother had to leave the courtroom several times because the emotional pain was so intense. The proceedings didn't drag on long. The trial lasted only 4 days.
I'll now announce the verdict. In the state of Georgia versus Jose Antonio Ibarra, case SU 24CR0323, count 1, malice murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 4, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty.
Every time a tragedy like this happens, we hear the same words: we need to change something. But years go by, and stories like this keep repeating. Lycan just went out for a morning jog, a routine that for most people symbolizes freedom, peace, and self-care. But instead, she became the victim of someone who had no right to be there at all. Her death isn't just a devastating loss for her family and friends, it's also a stark reminder to society of how fragile women's sense of safety is. Even in places that seem perfectly secure, Jose Antonio Ibarra was sentenced to life in prison without parole, and honestly, he deserved nothing less. But locking up one criminal won't bring Lycan back, and it doesn't fix the bigger problem. As her pastor said, Lycan was special. She was a gift to everyone who knew her. Smart, kind, compassionate, thoughtful, and even that doesn't begin to describe her. She was a loving daughter, sister, and friend, and she had this incredible gift of making everyone around her feel important and seen. That's exactly how people will remember her: bright, kind, and full of love. Her family has promised to carry on her legacy, helping others and creating a foundation in her memory. And at the spot where her life was tragically cut short, people leave flowers, letters, and candles, little symbols of the enormous love she left behind. And maybe that's the answer. We can't change the past, but we can do everything possible to make the future safer, so that the next Lycan, any young woman just going out for a jog, comes home safely, so that something like this never happens again. I have to say, Jose really is a chilling character. If you look into his eyes, there's absolutely nothing there. Maybe that's why he was capable of doing something so senselessly cruel to another person. I know this topic is tough, controversial, and painful, but I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Jose got the punishment he deserved? And more importantly, how do we prevent stories like this from happening again? That's probably it for today. We'll see each other very soon. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. See you, friends. Stay safe.